anybody work for a company that has like core values? Raise a hand for me, please. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure for those who don't, core values in a corporation, any corporation, church, mega corporation, whatever, anything in between, it's just a way for them to set like, here's how we make our decision making process. And then when we do training, these are the kind of employees we want to hire or make you into, right? And so I one of my first like adult jobs, meaning like I worked at like AT&T and T and Walmart and all this stuff. Those are good jobs, but it was like part time. Like I wasn't trying to make money and build a career. So like my first adult job was at a manufacturing plant, um, which was super exciting. And that's how I know it was an adult job because I didn't want to do it, but it paid well. Um, and about a year in, we got acquired by this much larger company. And so on the day that we got acquired, the CEO of the larger company came to our manufacturing plant. We were a really large plant here in Omaha. And he gets up. We built like a stage. They call everybody to the production floor. We all get there and sit in these chairs. And this new CEO like he goes, "Hey, here's who I am. Welcome to this manufacturing family." Anybody their work calls it a family, and you're like, "You're really mean if you're my family." So and then he tells us like, "Hey, here's the core values of this new organization." Okay, and so the first two of the core values, I remember this clear as day because of what happens. He says the first one is believe in people, and the second one is do the right thing. Okay, those are good core values, right? It's any company, but just especially like a big mega corporation that we got acquired by. The next day, a third of the employees were fired. So apparently, we don't believe in those people, and that was the right thing, right? Okay, so okay, that's been my experience with like core values, but it's really easy to like finger point at like at a mega corporation and be like, you did it wrong, like, and because it conflicts with our personal core values, right? When I say believe in people, we all immediately started thinking about the people we believe in, right? We didn't think about what Joe Schmo in some CEO desk said, this is what believe in people means. So then when they fire a third of the staff that was there, I go, well, that conflicts with me because I knew those people and you didn't know them. So you didn't even give them a chance to believe in them because then maybe you wouldn't have fired, or that doesn't feel like the right thing, right? There's a core value within yourself. So we all have these, but again, I can finger point at a mega corporation, or I can recognize that there's like oftentimes I have these core values and then I also don't live up to them. Like I negotiate with core values. A core value, just a general thing that I would say I value is like personal health. Like get some sleep. Anybody get sleep? Brush your teeth, take a shower, personal hygiene, maybe go for a walk, take some time and pray and meditate, just personal health. I don't do any of those things. Oh, you guys do? Okay. You're like, I do one or two of them, so I'm better than you, Pastor. Okay. So I'm just saying, like, I negotiate with my personal, I would still call it a core value that you should be healthy and be a healthy individual. I should be a healthy individual. But do I follow that? Uh, I mean, on the weekends when it's easier, or when my kids are behaving, then it makes sense. Or when I don't have any heavy bills to pay, or I'm on vacation. Anybody work out on vacation? I hate you, by the way. Like, but it's a core value of mine. Just make negotiations. No, I'm just kidding. But that's what I'm talking about. It's like we create all of these avenues. Like, oh, it's Valentine's Day. I'm not going to do that. Like, and so it's easy to point at those. But these are the internal values that are conflicting. And part of being a person of faith, of coming to church and doing this, is actually recognizing that there is a conflict within you of this. That there's a standard you're supposed to live by, and yet we keep falling short of that standard, right? But that's a good thing. We've looked at failure as a really negative thing in our culture, but to fail is actually a sign that you're human, that this is a process of learning, that it was never about leveling up and making it perfect and becoming like the person that has no problems ever. That's never going to happen, by the way. Sorry for some of my perfectionists in here. Anybody Enneagram type 1? Sorry. Like it's going to be okay. But there is this process, and the standard needs to be high. And for this, a value is only as strong as its standard. So the conflicting thing for me about the CEO was he didn't get fired. But if I were to look at his life, the way he run the corporation, I bet I could point to a handful of people that he just fired that represented do the right thing and believe in people than he does. But because he's an authority, he gets to say. Are you guys seeing the importance then of picking an organization in your life that is going to edify those good things? See, our standard as a church, any church, by the way, a Christ following church, Jesus is our standard. But too often, we make like a pastor the standard, or we make a program a standard. I don't know if you guys have any church experience, but a ton of my church experience is like leadership pipelines and discipleship paths. And if you can go through all of these things and you can check mark the boxes of what it means to be a good Christian. Did you raise your hand in worship today? Whenever I said tithe, did you immediately pull the envelope out and scan the QR code to give your last $100? Like, and then finally you will be a good Christian because you'll be like Jesus. It's like, no, we're missing what the value is supposed to be. The standard is true, to be like Jesus, to do as he did, to be with him. But how are we following that? What is the framework? And so Natalie and I, when we sat down about 6 months ago, we really felt God leading our hearts that Dwell needs to look different. We were small, and we kind of just looked like every church. And we said, well, this has to be different. If we look like every church, we should just go to those churches. They already did the work. They already did the hard work. So why did God make Dwell? Why are you here? Why would you wake up on a Sunday morning, spend time with us, listen to me monologue for a little bit, and then go home and potentially feel guilty, right? Why? Why would you do that? Because that's what your parents did? Well, let's move to something different, that this is a choice that you're making. And so at Dwell, we chose 6 values that said we believe that these are things that make up what it is to be a follower of Jesus at Dwell. These are the things that we're going to preach about. These are things that we are going to push. If you ask us, like, hey, how do you get through so-and-so problem? We're going to tell you, do these things. Follow these things, and you're going to live a good, fruitful life because this is what Jesus did. Are you guys with me? Okay. Here's the 6 things that we listed out that we said were important to be followers of Jesus at Dwell Church: faith, service, love, simplicity, community, and formation. These things, if you figured out these words right here and how they apply to your life, how you can create them a space in your heart, in your head, and in your home, we believe that this would change the way you live your life. Not only on a Sunday when you come to church. In fact, we believe in these so much, we want to encourage you to bring these into your everyday life. That if you could be a person of faith, not just when it's easy, not when you're surrounded by people all nodding their heads and saying amen and doing all those good things, but on Tuesday, when you wake up and you just want to press snooze again, but you have work to do and you have people to help. Do you have that? Do you have service in you to be able to do that? When life is chaotic, do you know how to simplify? Do you know how to bring those down? So we want you to use this. We want you to bring this because we like things to be catchy and memorable. And for the sake of definition, we put some like little tag statements to each of these values here. So today I want to talk about our value on love. On love. What does it mean to love here at Dwell Church? We wrote it this way. We call it seen, known, and needed. Seen, known, and needed. If you guys are taking notes today, I want to encourage you to write these 3 words down: seen, known, and needed. This is what it means to love. We say we love all people because Jesus does. We are dedicated to reaching those far from God and creating an inclusive church where everyone can encounter him. This is what it means to love at Dwell Church. Jesus lays out the example of the greatest commandments, and he says very simply, love God and love people. Okay? How? How do you love? Well, we believe if you can see people, you can know them, and you can let them know they're needed, you will show the greatest form of love. That Jesus models this throughout his entire ministry. In fact, if you look at the entire Bible, you will see this story over and over and over again. Are you guys with me today? Okay, let's look at this. Let's dive a little deeper. Look at this first word, seen. There are few better feelings than being seen, like really seen for who you are at like a deep level. Like when somebody stares at you and they see past the surface and they look deep into who you are. My favorite examples of this is when you go to a wedding and you see the bride walk down the aisle. I love looking at that moment. I want to honor that moment of seeing the bride walk down. This is her moment. But I love looking at the groom because he sees the most beautiful person in his life in the most beautiful way, done up and white and pure, and everything else could fade away. But really, what he sees is a future. What he sees is everything that he's worked hard for. All the moments that he's struggled, he sees that walk down the aisle. That's what I mean by seeing. When you see somebody at the core of what it is. For me, one of my favorite things is when I pick up my kindergartner from school. He's just so goofy and silly. And he'll just like be goofing around and playing with his friends as they walk out the school doors. And the moment he sees me, big smile. And he runs to me and gives me a hug. Dad! Every day. I think he's gonna, it's gonna break my heart when he stops. When he just starts rolling his eyes at me. It's gonna happen because my oldest doesn't do that anymore. And in the Bible, there's a name for how God sees you. There's a story with a man named Abraham. He has a couple different servants, and one of his servants is through a series of events is cast out into the desert. It's not a great story. Abraham doesn't look like a very good guy in this story, and he's not from doing this. And as she's in the desert, she's worried about her life, absolutely, and should be worried about her life. And it's in this moment that God calls down from heaven and he speaks to her and gives her comfort and says, hey, although you are going to walk through this desert, you are not going to be alone. And he says, your unborn child, I have a plan for him. So not only is it that you're going to be okay, but that child, your future, is going to be okay too. And her response is, I have seen the God who sees me. This is really beautiful. This moment of chaos, she pauses and says, I have seen the God who sees me. Later on, that this word is called El Roi as a way to describe this part of God's character. The God who sees me. It's important for you to know that God is not looking away from you. He's not ashamed of you. He's not embarrassed of you. Yeah, I don't know what Christian upbringing you might have had where you feel like God's just trying to catch you doing something wrong. But that's not our God. He just sees you. He sees you for who you are, both the good and the bad in this. And one of my favorite hymns called The Eye is on the Sparrow, the first verse goes like this: why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home when Jesus is my portion? A constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches over me. This is taken from a teaching that Jesus has about casting aside the anxieties and worries of life. He says, don't worry about clothes and food and your house, because if God even cares about the little birds in the air, how much more does he care about you? If he would figure out how to feed them, wouldn't he figure out how to feed you? He is watching you. He sees you. Not like Big Brother, not like wiretapping, but to the level in which you invite him in, and the level in which you present not the fake version of yourself to him. And we do this a lot, right? Even with God. Oh, no, this is my good Christian clothes. I'm doing it right. And God goes, I look past all of that. I see past all of that. In the Bible, we get a story of a man named David. David is a young boy who then later becomes the king of all of Israel, essentially all of the Middle East that we would know today. He's crazy. He's an awesome guy, but his story begins really small and just needing to be seen. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, it says this about David, about introducing David. It says, "Now the Lord said to Samuel," Samuel's a prophet, so he speaks for God to people who can't hear him. He says, "You have mourned long enough for Saul. I have rejected him as king of Israel." Saul's the current king, and he disobeys God. And God goes, "I got to pick a new king. I got to find someone new. So fill your flask with olive oil, go to Bethlehem, find a man named Jesse who lives there, for I have selected one of his sons to be my king." In a couple translations of the Bible, they use the word "I have chosen a king" or "I've provided a new king." But I love the original word. I'm a big Bible nerd here. The original word that's used in here, if you could translate it from Hebrew, is "I see a new king." This is God's command to his prophet. Fill up your flask. Go to the house of Jesse. I see a new king. The story of David continues with the prophet Samuel reaching Jesse's home and commanding him to gather his sons. The three eldest come forward. That would be the obvious choice, right? And God goes, "No, don't do that." And Samuel kind of has a moment. You can read it in the scripture that he has this like kind of heart moment, and God corrects him really quickly with this statement in verse 7. "But the Lord said to Samuel, don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him." The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. Come on, that's a word for somebody in here. The Lord does not see things the way that you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. How beautiful is it that our God is not just looking at the trials or the issues of our life, but he looks at your heart and says, "I see something more." This is one of the first acts of love that anybody can do. It's really hard to do, but it's an important act of love that God can give, is you see the king and queen in every person. Can you see that? It's difficult, right? It's difficult because like you think God, okay, he's this like ethereal thing. And in theory, he sits in and out of time and he could see the future and he sees the good and the bad. But we only see moments, right? We live right here. Like we can just see the either the good and the bad that's just in the exact moment. And then we just have memories of what have and have not happened to us. And so it's hard to see good in people when the reality that's facing us doesn't feel that good. But God says, even those people, he sees a king and queen. We have to look past what we see on the surface. This is an incredible act of love that is very self-sacrificial. Some of us, we're not going to like this, but I want to encourage you that what it means to follow Jesus, to be here at Dwell, is to look at people that even you would disagree with and say, "I'm going to choose to love even though you would never show love to me." I would see the potential of what God would call you. And I have to do that because if I can't do that for you, then it's not true for me. This is difficult, but it's true. And it's good to wrestle with this. I think there's often people designed in this world that we have conflict with in order to show the conflict that we have with ourselves. That there are always going to be people that you disagree with. But disagreeance does not mean you have to hate them. This is difficult. But this is love, to look past the hurts and pains that they may have caused. Here's the threefold path that I believe that David goes through, that we can go through, and that we could provide for others. It's this: God sees you, we see you, you see yourself. No one's ever changed their opinion off of a Facebook comment. Yet, that's often where we argue. Or at a dinner table at Christmas, right? And we want, like, as an act of love, we want people to change their opinions to be more like us, because if you're more like me, then it's easier to love you. This is not the path. It's recognizing this is, oh man, I could probably talk way too long on this, but I'm not. We need to recognize God sees you in your flaws and good stuff. And then if you're a part of a church community like Dwell, our job is to also see you. See the king and queen. And you may not believe it in yourself, but then eventually through the journey, you would start to see who you are. David is the youngest son of a shepherd in Bethlehem. Why would he ever think he could be king? He shouldn't be. Here's an interesting thing with this is that the current king has sons who are next in line to be king. That's how that works. There's princes already. And if God wanted to, he could have just chose what already existed. But instead, please hear this. For those of us who just have a low opinion of ourselves, I don't know who's in here that you think this, but God, the inclusive nature of his kingdom is that he would take the lowest person and put them in the highest position. I think God is looking for people who know what the hurt of life feels like and wants to help other people through that. I think the reason why David could be king was not because he was a prince already, but because he knew what it was like to serve at the lowest level. He was the whole part of seeing the lowest of the low and being able to work with the highest of the high was that he used to be the lowest of the low. And then God could put him into those places. I think somebody in here, you thought way too little about your life. And God sees you as somebody who could influence the world around you. It's such a powerful way. You see, when we start to see people of who they are and we get to see what God sees in them, then that person, if it's consistent in that, they can truly feel known. And this is the next phase in this, and feeling known. David doesn't take the throne after he is seen. He is anointed by Samuel, and then nothing happens. I see you. We don't know why God would choose David at this point. We just know that God did. And then what we get in the story is Samuel goes, hey, you're going to be king, and then leaves. That's it. He doesn't have it's not like Sword in the Stone where Merlin becomes like his mentor now. We're not in a Disney story, David. Instead, this is reality. And he goes, hey, you're going to be king. And then just goes, deuces. And then leaves. And then the next time we see Samuel is way down the road, way far down the road. So what does David do? Does he just go walk into the castle and be like, hey, do you see the oil? Sorry, guys. Daddy's home. No. But I think there is a thing, there's a hubris that some of us have that the moment that we feel seen or people recognize me, that I could just walk in and do whatever I want. Or I can just have whatever I want. And we've skipped a really important part where, what are you known for? Who are you? What is your purpose in life? And some of us skip over that because we don't even know the answer to that question. If someone were to ask us, what's your purpose in life? What? Dude, I'm just trying to drink my latte. I've asked that question over a coffee one time. It was awkward. So what is David known for? Well, we know that God has chosen him. That's about it. Yet, that means a whole lot. And so I see a lot of people do this, by the way, that you get seen and you feel like, I see you here. I'm standing in front of everybody, and I have looked everybody in the eyes here today. I see you. Hi. But I don't know you. And some people, I've seen you for months, and I don't know you. And some of that's on me. Some of that's on you. I call this hide and seek church edition. Anybody you excelled at hide and seek? Cody, I know you didn't. You're too big. One of the only benefits of being short, is pro level hide and seeker right here. Okay, especially hider. Guys, I could basically disappear for the day. Like I could fit in cabinets, under bushes. Like I'll find it, okay? And I'm going to win. Like I am pro level hide and seek. And then seeker, because I know all the best hiding spots, I'm going to find you, okay? So if we ever play a church hide and seek, I'm sorry, I'm going to win because I still have those skills deep, deep in my DNA, okay? But here's, yeah, in the trash cans. Here's one of just a pro level tip for you hide and seekers, and some of you you're better than you think you are. The best way to hide is staying still in an obvious place. Because whenever you're starting to play hide and seek, the job isn't like, well, can I see it? I got to go look for the spots where I think no one's going to see me. So they ignore just the regular day-to-day stuff. Here's the spiritual hide and seek that a lot of us do is that we come into church and we just have like a whole church face, right? Or you go into work and you just have like a work face. And it's this hide and seek of like, I'm just going to stay still in a very obvious place. So like, I might see you, but I don't know you. I can't see the part that you're hiding. That part of deep hurt. But also, in a weird way, this is new, by the way. I talked to other pastor friends of mine who've been doing this a long time. In our current culture, we're hiding good things that are happening. Because if something good happens to us, then we're just bragging about it. And look at all these other people who are hurt. And if I'm doing good, but they're hurt, then it's not very fair. It's like, just go on vacation. Like, just have fun. Tell me. Like, I want to. But how crazy that we live in a world right now that we don't even get to celebrate. But that's the known part that we're missing in this. Man, I hate. Okay, when I ask how you're doing, please don't give me a fake answer. Tell me, because I sometimes. With some of you I've known for a long time, I want to grab your shoulders and shake you and be like, you said you're all good, but everything about you says, I can't do this anymore. And I don't get to know you because you're hiding. I don't get to help you. I don't get to show you a friend who is also going through a difficult time, who you could join with, not in commiserating, but in finding a solution. Finding some hope. This is what it means to love, that you won't be doing this alone anymore. I love this. There's a point in which the story of David, in which Saul is just like the current king, he's just been torn up. His life is just in chaos. It says in the Bible that God has just kind of left him to his own devices. And they said his servants around him go, we need to help our king. We need to do something for him. So let's get a musician. And then they all go, do we know any musicians? It's a bunch of rich people. They're like, I don't know, we usually hire people. Like, what do we do? Like, and one of the guys, he goes like this. I love this. One of the young men spoke up. I know someone. I've seen him myself. The son of Jesse of Bethlehem, an excellent musician. He is also courageous. Other translation says a brave warrior, a man of war, of age, well-spoken, good-looking, and God is with him. That's a Tinder profile. Like come on, somebody swipe right on that. Like, he's a man of war. He's good looking. He's of age. He's a singer. He's a worshiper. We don't know any of the backstory of how this young man knows David, or we don't get any story of David just sitting on the street corner busking, like playing worship songs. But he is known in the highest offices as someone who can solve problems. You need a worshiper, you call David. You need someone to fight a battle, you call David. You need a good-looking guy, I don't know, for a model, I don't know. You call David. This is what I'm talking about, that he is known for this. But David didn't get known because he hid all of his talents. He didn't get known just because, like, somebody go, hey, David, by chance, do you know how to worship? Hey, David, by chance, could you help us with this battle? No. David presented himself as someone to be known so that when things are needed the most, David could step up. People would think of him. We have no record of David displaying his life like this, but he had to have. Otherwise, no one would have known that he was the choice. When faced with real life issues, I want to know somebody who could help you. And the truth is I can only help so much. I only have certain experiences in life, which is 34 years old as a dude. And I'm a father and I'm a husband for a while. So I can give you those experiences because that's just what I've done. That's a very narrow point of view. I need yours because there's somebody in here that is going to go through something. And I could say, well, here's what I would do. Or I could find you and say, don't worry, I know a warrior. I know someone who's already fought this battle. I haven't, but they have. So let me go get them. Let me get somebody I know. I've seen them myself face this problem. You see, in Matthew 7, Jesus gives us a warning of not loving like this. He says, if we don't follow this narrow path of love and recognizing in people, Matthew 7:23 says, but I will reply, I never knew you. Get away from me, you who break God's laws. It's not the touchy-feely Jesus that we're used to, right? But Jesus' response to you hiding yourself is, I never knew you. You never loved. You never opened up. You never showed that to people. What do you want me to do? So there's a responsibility on ourselves to be known, but to know people. This is a two-way street. So in this last series that we did before this one, Natalie and I, we really opened up about like our life struggles, about parenting and marriage and personal mental health, stuff like that. And some of the feedback that we got, if you guys weren't there, I want to encourage you, go back and listen to those messages. I think they were really, really helpful. Some of the feedback that we got was just like, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being authentic. We've heard people essentially give spiritual TED Talks before, but I really felt like you were talking about the real stuff. And I go, absolutely. Um, can you do that also? Can you open up and talk about the real struggles of life? This microphone doesn't have any magical powers. Like, it doesn't pull out vulnerability. I have to choose that. So here's one of the things that Pastor Natalie and I do as leaders of this organization. We open the doors really wide open so that you might just open it a crack. I go, listen, if it takes me just bearing it all and going, I don't know, you may not like it, you might leave, but somebody in here might gain a little confidence to open up the door for themselves. And one of the more powerful weeks, I talked about some mental health issues that I have going on. Can I tell you, one of my favorite things that happened was I got to know people. Because I let you know me, other people came up to me and said, I have the same problem, or this is what I'm dealing with. And then I got to do what I wish someone did for me. Is I said, hey, is there somebody in your life that you can talk to about this? Is there a professional? We got messages. I opened up. I'm on 2 different medications for some of my mental health issues. We had people reach out to us and say, I've always thought that medication was bad. I thought as a Christian I wasn't allowed to take it, that it was not something I was supposed to do. Like I would be a bad Christian because I wasn't believing that God could do all things. And then you said that it was okay to do that. And now I just got back on medication. And I just go, good. Not because the medication does anything. You're just now known. I get to know you. We get to see you. We get to know you. The last thing here, I'm going to wrap up with this, is that we make an important transition when we start getting to know people, is that we learn that we're needed. We learn that you're needed. In a silly yet powerful verse in the Disney classic Beauty and the Beast, Lumiere, the house servant, he says, I know. He says this. It's stuck with me for so long, and it's like a guiding light for me. And a lot of times, he says this: life is so unnerving for a servant who's not serving. He's not whole without a soul to wait upon. Oh, those good old days when we were useful. I had a mentor in my life when I was going through a really dark period. And he was walking with me for a long, so this was a little bit down the line. He was helping me be seen. He helped me feel known. And then he said something that felt very conflicting to me getting my feelings met. He said, Eric, who are you serving right now? Are you only serving yourself? Well, no wonder you're only thinking about yourself. You have way too much time to think about yourself. This is very counterculture, by the way. It's like, no, you got to do. I'm telling you a path to learning to love yourself, a path to loving the world around you, of learning not to hate, to not have jealousy, not have vengeance, to not have like a sense of justice where it hurts people, is actually to serve. To know that you are needed in order to help somebody. What hits me about this verse, as silly as it is, and even the presentation of it, it's this really big song, and they're dancing around and doing all this stuff, and then it gets really quiet. It's the weirdest part of the song, and they're mimicking snow falling, and it's this blue light, and it's depressive. And the core of these characters, not the main characters, not the beauty, not the beast, the characters that are around it is, I have a design in my life, and I'm not using it. Here at Dwell, the way that we are going to love you, I'm going to see you. Across the room, I'm going to get to know your name. That's just seeing you. But I want to get to know you. I want to know who you are, what God has called you to, all your struggles and triumphs, all of the things that make you who you are. But after we do that, I don't want to leave you there. I want you to know that you're needed. Here at Dwell especially, as we're a growing church, you are needed. We're meeting new people every week. It's so cool. I am so astonished by what God is doing in our church right now. But we will fail if it's only a core group of people doing this. But if we're all doing it, this could be a game changer in Omaha. We talk about like being able to like really help people. I'm talking about changing the world around us because a church decides I'm going to be seen, known, and needed. Now I'm going to let other people do this. Here's what I need you to get. You are needed to see and know others. And here at Dwell, I need you to see and know others. This is a circular journey of love we are called to. Worship team, would you guys come up and start playing some music with us? God and Samuel saw David. He was known for being many wonderful things. But what does David do with that reception of love? Cool, he gets to play some music. He gets to do some stuff. But that's not what he was made for. We're going to talk in a couple weeks from now. We're going to talk about a battle that David goes into in order to solidify who he really is. We'll recount the battle, but not long after David's time in the palace with the king, the whole kingdom goes to war. And the kingdom is threatened by a domineering power, and they need someone to step up. There's an enemy that was way too strong that was about to come up against them. Everything was going to be lost. Before David would ever be called king, the kingdom would be gone. Sure, we see him as king. He's anointed. People know him as a good guy. But the thing he's actually supposed to do in his life is not going to happen unless somebody steps up. The soldiers of the Israelite army are terrified and begin looking around, searching for a way out, for a solution that won't end in their death. So David steps up, not because no one else will do it, It's the worst form of serving, by the way. It's needed sometimes, but it's the worst version of it. Oh, if no one else is going to do it, I guess I'll do it. No, your heart's not in it. I'd rather it not happen. Dwell has depended on a few individuals to fight battles for all of us. We've been in church for 2.5 years, but like I said, this last 6 months have really been key and core in who we are. But these people, their sacrificial acts of love have blessed us. I think of the Burkle family, Cassie, who's up here, Tyler, who's in the back, who have been here every single Sunday for the last 2.5 years, waking up early, getting their kid ready, and coming in and setting all of these things up here. I think of Mari, who's given her time and reputation to guide those in needs. I think of Levon, who's never been afraid to let people know that there's a church that loves them. I think of Missy, our new kids director, who cares for your kids, but desires for them to have God's word written on their heart. But we can no longer be a church that just depends on a few. We can't. It just won't exist any longer after that. We need you. We need you to love people. I don't need you to set up chairs. I need you to love people. I need your help. Natalie and I'm coming on my 14th year pastoring. This is a difficult journey, not because of the work. The work is work. I could go anywhere and there's going to be work. The hardest part of being a church and running a church and being a part of it is loving. Because often people don't love easily back. And sometimes people are hard to love, especially if you don't agree with them. But God's called us to be so much more than just a selfish clique. He's called us to love people. Every single person that walks through these doors. I want everybody to walk out of here feeling seen, known, and needed. I believe that we can do that together.